The last point I want to make, because my time is almost up, the last finding is the difficulties of carrying out efficacious interventions in community settings, and how difficult it's been to replicate the findings that we know are possible in the lab setting, in public schools, and in generally funded programs. Some groups have been able to do it. There are 2 papers in the last 2 years by Howard Cohen and Jane Howard that have carried out Lovaas type treatment in a publicly funded situation and have been able to get the same kinds of good outcomes in half the group, including some recovery. However, in the public settings that can do this, I think the reason that it's working is because they are using a tested methodology and a tested curriculum, but they are also using the same kind of rigorous methods, careful training, ongoing supervision, monitoring of treatment fidelity. They're using the strong methodologies that the research studies use. And I think this is sobering for us when we think of the cost of doing this, and yet the need to have children with autism receiving high-quality interventions through the world. So in closing, I want to make 5 points. First, the question of whether early behavioral differences in infants are indicating incipient autism in those children, and that the longitudinal designs that we're using are necessary to answer those questions, but we also have to be using multiple comparison groups. Just comparing children to autism to those with typical development will not tell us whether the differences are specific to autism. So we have a long ways to go before we have the answers to the wonderful early detection work that's going on. Second, intervention science must be prioritized. Early detection is not important if we do not have effective, accessible treatments for the children who identified. The purpose of early detection is early treatment. We have to get treatment going as quickly as detection is going. Third, transactional models and the idea of a gradual onset offer the real possibility of preventative interventions. The idea of transaction is that we may be able to stop the process as it is starting. And we badly need efficacy trials and randomized controlled designs to see whether, in fact, early risk can be prevented from leading into full onset. In order to do this, we have got to figure out how to develop the most efficacious parent-delivered interventions. I think parent delivery is absolutely crucial if we are to get the earliest treatment possible, if we are to get the needed intensity that we think is necessary, if we are going to have the possibility to prevent autism from its full behavioral onset, and if we're going to respond to the global need. There is no substitute for parent intervention and parent delivery if we're to meet the global need of autism. We have to understand how to make that as efficacious as possible. And finally, getting effective interventions into the community, large scale, is going to be difficult, messy, frustrating, and expensive. However, it is the only way that intervention and intervention science can achieve the goals and the promise of better outcomes in autism. Thank you so much for your attention.